Hello, hello, fellow Whovians, and a very special happy birthday to the one and only Tom Baker, the man, the mystery, the legend that is Tom Baker, turned 90 this week. We missed it on the day of for a variety of reasons, but that gives us the opportunity to give you a whole show all about Tom Baker. So that's what we're doing in this very special pre-recorded episode of The Legend of the Traveling TARDIS, hosted by me, Paparazzo Dave Chapman. And here's what we've got. 4 years ago, before this was a video show, we did a podcast. That's where a lot of us began, hosted, of course, by Christian Basel. And we reviewed Scratchman, Tom Baker's Fourth Doctor novel, which he actually even read himself. So I'm going to bring you an edited down version of that episode. It is audio only, so I'll be inserting stuff here and there, but please enjoy this, and we'll see you at the other end.
From Krypton Radio and the creators of the Hangin' With Web Show, it's The Legend of the Traveling TARDIS. Look inside and behind the scenes to one of the most enduring and beloved sci-fi worlds. Step inside the door to a world that's bigger, brighter, and beyond imagination. As you become a part of The Legend of the Traveling TARDIS. And now, your host, Christian Basel.
Oh, no. Hello. I've just been reading this book. I'm all of a doodah here. This is the most terrifying book I've ever read, yes, that I've ever written. You'll like it. Here it goes.
Well, guess what, fellow Whovians? It is not Christian Basel yet. However, it is Melanie Dean going to be doing a little bit of a hosting today. I am joined with author Mark Muncy. Sorry, Mark. Oh, my God.
I get that a lot.
Oh, I'm literally looking at a sheet of paper here that has everyone's name so I don't flub them. I know who you are, and I still screw it up. Anywho, let's go to another author that we know and love, Mackenzie Flohr. Hey, Mackenzie.
I was expecting you to mess my name up, too.
No, I had that written down, and this time I could read correctly. And last we have Dr. Freedom himself, Brian Burress. Hello, Brian.
Hello, everybody. How you doing?
And as shortly, we will actually have Christian joining us, but he has, let's just say, we're going to call it technical difficulties right now. He couldn't, get his TARDIS to coordinate to the correct coordinates just yet. But we are going to be here. We're going to be talking about a certain book that just came out in January, and it is Doctor Who Scratchman, and it is by author Tom Baker. You may have known him more as the Fourth Doctor. But before we get into all of that, we're going to go ahead and hit up with Who Knew News.
We interrupt this old Who Knew News for some new Who Knew News. That's right. We actually do have current Who Knew News because as of earlier today, wait for it.
Oh, not yet. Spoilers.
This is your chance to mute things for this because there could be spoilers here if you're so inclined. However, as of earlier today, Variety.com is reporting that Miley Gibson, the new companion for Ncuti Gatwa in season 1 of Doctor Who, is going to be leaving and going to be replaced by Virata Sethu from Jurassic World Dominion, amongst other things. So that is a rumor. Take it from a grain of salt, but it is Variety.com, which is a fairly reputable industry insider. This is all but confirmed. However, it is still a rumor. Variety did reach out to the BBC and Bad Wolf. They did not respond with anything, because of course they didn't. But season 2 of Who You Got Was Doctor is now filming right now in Wales. So presumably Radhasethu has been seen on set. I don't know. I know nothing. This was confirmed by a Variety.com source, not myself. But there's your Who Knew news.
I have actually a little quick bit of news myself to interject. Christian Basel's now here. Hey, Christian.
Yeah. So where are we? Oh, okay. I'm just showing up. Yeah, this is your show right now. This is Scratch. We're reviewing Scratchman.
We're going to review Scratchman, but we did our Who Knew news, and then you blessed us with your presence.
And I think we've already I'm going to involve a little bit of the trivia because Vincent Price was supposed to be Scratchman, if I'm not mistaken. That was,
Yes.
and after hearing the audio, I don't want to get too much into it, but my goodness, why not?
I think that...
Spoilers.
What? I mean, honestly, this show's going to be completely filled with spoilers as we kind of keep going along. But I was thinking, like, how... Well, one, Scratchman really, if and you guys, let me tell me your thoughts. I mean, it was literally like 2 books. It was the first book where you have, the long night where you're on the island, and then the second book was all Scratchman in the fantasy world of
That's
him.
true.
I mean, you really never got to even see Scratchman until the second portion.
And then it was kind of the denouement back where it brought it all back together, which is almost like Battle of Helm's Deep style, third part that was huge, and it's like, and that would have been another. I'm thinking back to the old, serial days. This would have been like War Games, 12-parter. I don't know how they were going to do it in a 2-hour movie.
Oh yeah, oh absolutely.
It should have been retitled Doctor Who Goes to Hell.
Or at least in the different parts. But before we start going into Scratchman, I know we have to stop and pay some bills and go to and have a little quick commercial break. But when we come back, we're going to delve deep into the world of Scratchman and hit the long night first.
Come now, Doctor, the Zero Nun prompted. Let's get to the bottom of this together. All right, I told her, but in order to do so, I need to teach you about fear. Fear? She blinked. That got her, so she blinked again. Yes, I addressed the entire chamber. You see, even the Time Lords are afraid of something, and tonight I'm going to show you what that is. Are you sitting comfortably? Huh? Are you sitting comfortably? Yes, of course you are. And I'm rather afraid that is your problem.
All right, welcome back to the Legend of the Traveling TARDIS radio show. My name is Melanie Dean, and the only reason why she's not here is because she's having a little technical issue. So I guess we get to do the trade-off there. My name is Christian Basel, and I'm with my friends, Mark Muncy of Erie, Florida. I have Dr. Freedom himself, Brian Burress. I have the Hanging With crew on here, as well as Mackenzie Flohr of The Right of Wands. And I have artiste Melanie Dean somewhere in the time loop, in the time sector, in the time vault, or whatever that big triangle is in the 5 Doctors that they got her zapped in here. So I'm hoping she'll be here very shortly. But we're going to do our review of Scratchman. Now, normally I would not be talking over as much as I am, but I'm trying to bloviate, hoping that Melanie would actually pop back into the show so she can take over, because she is hosting the show over here. And you know what? Let's do it the official way, guys. Scale of 1 to 10, traveling TARDISes. Mark, what's your number for Scratchman?
I'd say a solid 8.
Solid 8. Dr. Freedom, what do you give Scratchman?
Definitely a 9.
Definitely a 9. Mackenzie?
I also give it a 9.
Also give it a 9. We're giving some high numbers. And Melanie? Just kidding. Anyway, I'm giving it, I can't give it a solid 10. But it's somewhere residing between 8 and 9. There were some weird things in there that I had some challenges with. But overall, first of all, let me address this. Tom Baker could read the phone book in Latin, and I would still probably listen to it. But I honestly think Tom works well when he's bouncing off of somebody else. And not that I wouldn't say it's a bad term, that he was kind of getting a little redundant, a little boring at times. And redundant, I think, is the better term there. But I've heard him in Big Finish audios. I've heard him with, I think it was the Sands of Life with David Warner. And he actually sparred off with him in a verbal conversation. I mean, those kinds of things. When he is with a co-star, he is really bouncing the energy off of that person and encompassing it and translating it and making it something so awesome. And he did that well with Mary Tam and Layla Ward and Louise Jameson, and definitely Sarah Jane Smith herself. Why my brain is fried right now for her name? I can't get it. So somebody, Liz Sladen. I mean, when he has something to bounce off of, he sounds really, 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 really cool. So I appreciate him doing this. I'm happy about it. But what do you guys think if this was an actual movie? Would you go out and watch this?
Oh, I was sold when I heard Vincent Price is a bad guy.
Yes.
And man, anything with Liz Sladen and old Harry Sullivan. Oh gosh, whose name's escaping me for a moment too.
Mm-hmm.
But
Ian
yeah,
Margaret.
thank you. They were just such the classic team. That's what I grew up with. They were my first Doctor and companions. So I'd have paid big money to see them do that. I'm still hoping for an animated version.
What do you think, Dr. Freedom?
Yeah, it was just such an amazing, book, an amazing story. It was very well told. Tom, even by himself, he just has his own style, and the way he's telling you this story, it's as if the Doctor is telling you the story. It's not Tom Baker, and that's what made it very, very exciting. The one question I have, though, is who do you think that mysterious lady with the rainbow striped blouse and the blonde hair was?
Yeah, exactly. Mackenzie, what do you think about Scratchman overall?
Scratchman, I really enjoyed it. I have to agree with Dr. Freeman. It was a lot like being able to picture Tom. Now, I didn't listen to the audio, so I had just the book to work with, but it felt like every time I was reading it that it was Tom Baker's Doctor telling the entire story, and it wasn't just somebody writing words, and so it made a lot of sense, and I liked that because I'm just really now getting into the Fourth Doctor era. The Fifth Doctor was my Doctor, so I really didn't get a lot of background knowledge about the Fourth Doctor, but now I'm getting there.
Oh. And Melanie, we did the Traveling TARDIS count, and I'm going to regenerate back into you in just a moment for a better term. But Melanie, what did you give it as far as Traveling TARDISes are concerned?
I would actually give it up to a 9. It's almost a 10. It was I'm waffling, so we'll go 9.5. We'll go 9 and a door. Because I thought it was just, I didn't read the book. I listened to the audiobook because when I heard that he was going to do it and it was going to be the unabridged version narrating, I figured, okay, I'm all in to listen to Tom speak. And then I was just elated when it was first person. So here he's narrating this as himself. Mm-hmm. And there was quite a few different times when he's talking about, talking to the Time Lords in the theater that, them kind of saying, well, how do you know what Harry Sullivan's thinking? Or, how did you know that that's what Sarah Jane was thinking? And he kind of just said, well, I imagine that this is what would have happened. And then just kept going. So it almost had, I don't want to say like a Big Finish kind of deal to it, because you have one person doing everything except at some points hearing the Cybermen, which I might have just completely screamed with glee at that point. But overall, it was just an amazing story, and I could see it in my mind's eye play out exactly like any of the Fourth Doctor TV series that I had seen, any of those episodes.
I would have loved to see what the budget would have been like for that pinball game, but I digress. I'm going to switch over to you, but Melanie, can I ask one question for everybody else? Since you mentioned Big Finish,
yes.
Would you guys object if Nick Briggs took this in and made this into a Big Finish audio using a cast that would be very, very dedicated to Sarah Jane Smith and all the cast and somebody who had a Vincent Price voice playing Scratchman? Would you want that?
I'd want David Warner.
You want David Warner, Scratch? Yeah, that could work. Yeah,
he does enough with Big Finish. No, I think they'd be great. There's stuff they did with the Third Doctor where they've got those sound-alikes that sound just like
Tim Traylor,
Pertwee and sounds just like Nicholas Courtney. I almost cried when I heard the Brig speak again. That was, he was my companion, and that hit me hard when I first saw that. So Big Finish, yeah, they can almost do no wrong in my book.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Freedom, where do you think?
The trick would be the casting, but Big Finish has done an excellent job with that before, like he just said. So I wouldn't mind hearing it, but for me, for Scratchman, just to make a radical departure, someone who they haven't had in before, I'd say John Delancey as Scratchman.
Ooh, yes, because he has that Q effect. So that could be translated over. I would love to have, when you mentioned David Warner, I would want him as evil from Time Bandits. that cynical, that just 4 o'clock, day one. Sure, sorry. Mackenzie, would you want Big Finish to take this into an audio, to a drama?
Honestly, I would love to see it. The one thing, though, that I would be concerned about, besides the casting, is really the part for Sarah Jane Smith, because Briggs actually mentioned at Galley they were talking about bringing back the Sarah Jane Smith adventures, and that was something that Big Finish was thinking about, and they decided at this time they're not going to do that, simply because it's so close to, everything else that's been going on with Liz and her passing. So that would be I would more probably want to see it as an anime, because I think that'd be more realistic to have that happen versus an audio at this point.
But that would be a lot on the WHOniverse's shoulders for somebody to take that role and not kind of be scrutinized as like you're going to have your diehard Sarah Janes and you're going to have people going, oh, she sounds like her. Go for it there. But Melanie, I digress. I'm regenerating back into you like Miley Cyrus regenerates back into Hannah Montana. There you go. I can find a better analogy. So take it away, Melanie. I will sit back and relax.
Oh, no, you won't. I'll have a billion questions for you. But thinking about Big Finish, I would love to see if Big Finish could somehow look into this world, because now we've seen how the whole Scratchman world is another universe, and that he kind of, that it was the Cybermen that kind of helped poke that hole in, and kind of got his foot into the door into ours, which makes me kind of wonder what else has the Scratchman and his universe has done, how old it is. So I would love to see Big Finish kind of tackle that as a, hey, here's a sandbox to play in, have some fun. To have this particular story done, I think I would be one of those evil people that would be completely hypercritical on who they would cast as Sarah Jane. I just, again, like to Mackenzie's point, we're just so close, and seeing the spectrum of work she's done, where you can go young Sarah Jane as a companion, or older Sarah Jane as, from the Sarah Jane adventures, where everyone's just kind of close to it. Or at least I'm very, kind of close to it. I think it's I would be so critical. It would be so bad. But the whole world of Scratchman. I mean, the funny thing is between the two, looking at Scratchman, which I have to keep kind of looking at it as, I say Scratchman as the book. However, it's really two books. You've got The Long Night, where you have, the island. So I almost wonder what if the Big Finish had taken, Scratchman and done more stuff with other islands and other, where you got all those people. But of the two books, did anybody like one more than the other, or they were kind of even? Or I'm going to kind of pose that to everybody. I'll start with Christian, though, since we kind of regenerate into one another. What do you think? Did you like one of the stories more than the other book, or did they just kind of all flowed together?
That's a weird part, and maybe I'm the only one that's probably going to say this. They didn't feel like, I wouldn't say that they were disconnected, but they didn't feel like they kind of flowed together. They just seemed like they were different, and probably I would probably want to see that more. But I know we're on a hard break right now, so I'll get more into that information when we return. There, Melanie, you want to take us out?
No, I think you just did it perfectly. So let's pay some bills and listen to some quick commercials as we regroup and start thinking about how we want to approach this question.
We're not really here for a picnic, are we, Doctor? No, I agreed. Something's brought the TARDIS to this place, and I want to know why. Something good? Something evil? She paused and sighed. It's going to be something evil, isn't it?
And welcome back to The Legend of the Traveling TARDIS. You're joining me, Melanie Dean. You're joining Mark Muncy, Brian Burress, Mackenzie Flohr, and our fearless host, Christian Basel, as we talk about Tom Baker's awesome, amazing book, Scratchman. And the last question we were just talking about is, of the two kind of story themes, was there one that was better than the other for whoever, for the listener, for whoever listened? And if so, or were they even? So, Christian, where were you on that?
Yes, we have no bananas. Anyway, I think of all the things in there, the trial room, for a better term, I guess. Because for some reason, the whole time, I saw him on trial with the Time Lords. I literally saw Colin Baker at trial of the Time Lords, and now I see the Fourth Doctor doing it. And just basically verbally backhanding each one, and they try to do something, and he does his own style about, just taking them down. You should be afraid. Are you sitting comfortably? That's the problem. Those little quirks and nuances that he brings out over there. I love the trial room thing.
Do you think the trial room was a really good way of tying the two books together, or the two story themes together?
Well,
you always kind of go back and forth to it.
Well, you kind of like that. You said there was even a third story, technically, a little bit there in the tower in the clouds, or the castle in the clouds. But I do, I like the way that if this were a movie, I was impressed. It's like, oh, they're going to take out the Doctor. Okay, what reason why? And he's explained it to them, and I like it in the same regard that when the last episode with Clara, with Capaldi's Doctor, he's telling his story to Clara. I kind of saw some echoes in there going into this, where the Doctor's telling his story, and they're kind of intrigued, and they're looking for any little weakness, any little stupid thing that the Doctor has done, but he keeps on just holding the ground, and I kept being... And the stories, actually, like the ones with the Scarecrow in the church and all that, those stories were not only keeping me focused on what was going on, but when he got back into the trial room, I go, oh, that's right, he's on trial again. Mm-hmm. So I kept on forgetting those things because the story just got so wrapped into things. I don't want to say it in a negative context that it didn't feel like it was flowing, but I think that's the good part about it, is because it went from one weird thing to another. There's Cybermen coming out of the water. There's Scarecrows showing up raiding a church, and then there's a big video game at the end, and I was just like, what, who, when? And then Harry Sullivan falls into a hole, and there seems a lot more to it. It just seems like
so I'm going to segue out of that real quick. Mackenzie, I know we were talking about this a few times. Harry Sullivan.
Yeah.
Is an imbecile.
He's an imbecile. I'm going to actually bring this out to everyone, but Mackenzie, I want you to go first. So with Harry, do you think he might be the luckiest man in the world, or possibly just the most inept? What do you think?
Oh, well, I'm going to just say he's really inept just because, klutziness. I mean, it's like, you could give me something and I can guarantee it. It will either be spilled on somebody or I will spill it on myself. So, yeah, he's very lucky. He's very lucky, but completely stupid because he doesn't realize.
You think he's the Spectre Clouseau?
Exactly.
No, Harry Sullivan, he was just one of those classic cases of, he's obviously a very intelligent guy, but he has no common sense whatsoever. He's just out there on his own, and sadly, Ian Marter left us a long time ago, but he was just such a brilliant character, so open, so friendly, and so inept, that you could relate with him. That's what I loved about him.
He was a master of physical comedy, yes. And reading that scene, and then later I listened to it later, and Tom describing it was just beautiful. And that,
him trying to get sugar.
Yes. The whole shop scene made the last 9 seasons of Walking Dead should have had that scene at least once, because it was amazing. It was so well done.
And the funny thing is, to me, it played very vaudeville. It played very slapstick, because I listened to it, and I mean, just him, I'll go get a wheelbarrow, and then he leans down, and then the scythe goes over his head. I'm like, are you kidding me? But then, Brian, what was your reaction to when they're in they're fighting Scratchman, and they're in blackness, they're in dark, and all of a sudden they're in a pinball machine from the mind of Harry Sullivan.
That kind of reminded me of the classic Ghostbusters moment. I
Yes.
tried to think of
Yes.
something harmless.
Yes.
It just popped in there.
Yes.
I was thinking the old X-Men bit where the arcade used to trap them in things like that, and there's classic Marvel Comics covers of that too. So it was classic Death Trap, and very 70s, which fit the book so well.
Plus, Ian Marter was helping him write the original version of this, and he had written several of the series novelizations back in the day. So it's nice, trying to sit here and figure out, what bits were written by him and Tom back in the day, and what parts were written by Tom. And I think it was James Goss helped him do this adaptation.
Stuff, yeah.
But you can see where they've added things in. That's what I love about it also, that that have happened since then. Like, how many here remember the Jigsaw room? You obviously have bits there that Sarah's seeing that if you really pay attention, you recognize are scenes from the Sarah Jane Adventures. And that really, really helps supplement it. Plus, of course, the appearance of the blonde mystery woman in the rainbow striped blouse. And that, adding in that factor as well. It just really ties it together and makes it such a good story for now because, they're looking into the future, from this book that, had been started like way back, I think, in the early 80s. Mm-hmm. And it's just seeing it put all together now, and it just fits together so well, with what we've experienced since then. And it just makes it that much more magical with Tom telling this story. It really does. It just knocks me out.
How many doctors were you able to kind of count as you read or followed along this story? For me, I know I heard 1, 2, 3. There was a cameo, I think, of 10 at some point running through, and then was it 13 in the same room with the blonde hair and the northern accent? Yeah,
that was her.
Yeah.
Plus, I love the way they portrayed the first 3 doctors, as, they saw them, and the fact that he was able to characterize them so well with the lines, he's got Hartnell, hushing the other ones and stuff like that. And you got Troughton like, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Then you got Bertrand like, I say, good man. He just captured their essence and their personalities so well in those scenes.
I enjoyed just the bit with Charon, describing them as well as they're traveling, when he's got them in the car. And he's taking them through hell and across the river. Yeah, and it's like it was, and he's just describing the stuff the other ones did. How Pertwee was trying to fix the car for 2 hours, now it won't run. That was brilliant. That's totally what they would have done.
But he was an awful tipper.
Yes.
And the quick little bit of, you've already kind of ferried 3 of me and I'm the 4th, so just put it on my tab.
Yeah,
that was brilliant.
That was very
utterly Now, Christian, did you have a particular scene that you felt, or at least didn't think that really worked well? At first I wasn't sure if I liked everything that happened at the church, but then with the moths, but then it kind of grew on me. Was there anything in the book that you thought, and again to anybody afterwards, that didn't work, you thought?
Wow. I don't remember a particular scene. I meant the only scene that kind of caught me, but I'm glad that he explained it at the end because I was going to go nuts if they didn't explain it, was the what I call the Jigsaw of Life room that Sarah walks into and sees past to future. And I was like, why does he have this room? Why is it in here? What's going on? And why is she just blindly stumbling into this room randomly? But I'm glad that they wrapped it up in the end. And I don't think there's really a particular scene that kind of caught me off guard too much. And how do you, I was trying to figure out how the Doctor was going to defeat the devil. How is that even possible? And he's in another universe and dealing with this situation. But no, nothing really kind of threw me off. And going back to Ian Marter as being Harry Sullivan, he could be somebody could take him to a mosh pit and he would be a complete gentleman going, oh, everybody's a little bit dingy in here.
I think you could see that in the signs during the pinball area. Yeah. And how it became a tell that he was still alive because, the little, was it a pardon me sign was going on or something like that?
Yeah, and there's not only Mackenzie, did you mention him being, I mentioned him being Inspector Clouseau. He was kind of Rory-ish in this one too, because he just kept dying and coming back.
Yes.
And
totally.
Yeah, I just there wasn't a particular scene that really said no, this shouldn't be in here.
Anybody else? Anyone else had like that moment where you're like, oh, this is for such an outlandish story? Did you find something that you had a little bit of a harder pill to swallow?
I did, and when it came into when the Scratchman or the Dark Void, however you want to call it, went into the TARDIS, and she fell down when she got caught in that clock. That part I had really hard time really visualizing it and saying, well, how in the world did this work? It just seemed like it was just kind of going all over the place, and it just didn't really, for me, it didn't feel like it flowed very well at that part.
That's why I gave the book a knock. You know, it was there were a couple bits like that. That was the one that was primarily my problem. Was like, what? And then there were just a couple parts that kind of dragged a little too long. It was like Saturday Night Live gags that just went on about 5 minutes longer than they needed to. I was like, it needed just a little more tight editing. You know, if Douglas Adams had a chance with the script like he had in the 70s, this might have, picked it up. And that was why I gave it 8 instead everybody else gave it a 9. It was fantastic, but there were just a couple bits like that I was like, you could have just chopped that about 5 seconds or 5 pages or, whatever. So.
No, I agree that the clock was the one where as listening to it, I started kind of getting lost a little bit. I thought the portion where she was where she's in the TARDIS at getting in there and then finding out that one of the scarecrows kind of followed her in, I thought that had a really good pacing to it. And then trying to figure out what exactly the lights were, and not being able to kind of picture it until she got up high enough to turn around and then see that they were, a tessellation of what was going on. But no, I agree with the clock part. I couldn't quite visualize it. But one thing I'm going to have to visualize, however, segue, is that we're going to have to go to a commercial break. When we return, we're going to talk a little bit more about Scratchman by Tom Baker.
The Doctor has made this whole story up just to frighten us. The old duffer was finding his voice again. He's invented it out of whole cloth, just to shake us down. I say we wipe him out now.
And welcome back to The Legend of the Traveling TARDIS, where you're joining me, Melanie, along with Mark, Brian, Mackenzie, and Christian, as we talk a little bit more about Scratchman. And why not save it for the very end, piece de resistance, the very end of the book, where everything is just kind of having that big battle. And you have all the monsters coming, you have Sarah Jane, and you have, I almost said Ian Martyr, Harry Sullivan. They're going to be protected by now the villager scarecrows are there, and now you're having you're having this, and you're having that meanwhile with Scratchman and the Fourth Doctor duking it out. Mark, what did you love about this? What did you think, oh my God, how are they going to get out of this?
Well, I loved it because it was very, like I said before, Battle of Helm's Deep. It was the ultimate battle. They had everything. We're just throwing everything we can at the situation. Let's just bring up, we got an unlimited budget for this book. We got an unlimited budget for the audiobook. Let's throw what we can at the wall. And that's where I was like, okay, maybe they didn't actually write this part for the original movie. They probably would have had a big finish, but I don't, pardon the pun there. But, but they definitely, it was amazing. It was fun to read. And definitely the little coda at the end where he's back with the Time Lords and our mysterious visitor and other stuff like that was very cool and a neat way to wrap it up. But that battle was a joy to read, but there was no way they could have ever filmed that, especially back then. It just would have been impossible.
So, Brian, at that very, very end where we know Sarah Jane has been sucked into a pit, Harry's holding her, something is pulling him back, something is saving them. Were you surprised at what it was?
Yeah, it did catch me off guard, but at the same time, that's one I wanted to mention was the cyber leader character, because the way the Cybermen or the cyber leader was described in this book was very reminiscent of the Vashna Narada from Silence in the Library. You can actually see the skull inside the faceplate being lit. Mm-hmm. And then as it speaks, of course, Cyberman voice. That would have been so freaking creepy if they were able to do something like that on a modern show, where you can see that glowing skull inside the cyber helmet. Plus the fact that he's doomed now to, for this story, to walk around doing all these good deeds, because that is a curse to a Cyberman, is to actually do something emotional that actually helps. And I thought that tied it together brilliantly when, he ends up being the one who pulls Harry and them out of that that void. I thought, oh, wow, that is just so brilliant the way they were able to bring him back just for that moment. This will be the last time I do something like this or something like that.
And honestly, I love the fact that here you have a book that's being narrated by Tom, and all of a sudden I'm hearing Nick Briggs. I'm like, wait a minute. That's what made me kind of almost think very Big Finishy, because now I'm having the voice of what I would have in my head. I'm hearing, through my ears. Mackenzie, what did you think about our huge battle at the end? And just anything. What did you think?
Oh, I loved it. And going back to that Cyberman, it's kind of funny. I actually was thinking about the 11th Doctor last episode when he was on that Chancelar, where the Cybermen had become wooded. It made me think of that. So I'm like, oh, this would be really cool. But I had the same thought as Mark, where I'm like, there's no way they would have been able to put this together then, like they could probably now with the budget. Yeah, it was brilliant.
Oh yeah, with the him in the taxi, going back a bit when he first encounters the cyber leader, how they described the head, and then how the head moves to the left when he brings. Oh, by the way, the door where the scene where he gets the cyber leader to effectively blow off the door. He's going to go run towards it like a shield and just kind of has the conversation, but first rolls down the window so that way they can see each other. That was just, I guffawed. I was listening to it at work and laughed aloud. So I had a couple of people turn and look at me like I had grown a third eye. But that part where he kept describing the Doctor, speaking to the cyber leader, and like the head either tilting to the left, and that how it would tilt, but then the skull just moved, or I could just see it in my mind's eye, how it would just take a moment for that to kind of like pendulum, or like just kind of over, or just I'm trying to think how they would be able to film that. That would take forever to set up a shot like that. Christian, do you think that there was any other scenes in this that there's just no way that you could just shoot it?
Well, I meant, well, I could only imagine what kind of budget that they would have had back then. I mean, they would probably have gone into the BBC vault and said, okay, what's that Cyberman doing this week? Let's pull him out there and let's make a movie with him. But I don't know. And first of all, are we all just overlooking the elephant in the room that this is the second time, I think, in Doctor Who history that the Doctor has lit up? Did anybody skip that?
Yes! Oh, wait!
Yeah, because that goes right back to William Hart, and a lot of people forgot he smoked a pipe, yeah.
Yeah, everybody's going like, oh, he doesn't smoke a pipe. And I remember in an interview with Tom Baker, when he was talking about his interpretation of the Fourth Doctor, that he wanted to make sure that his Doctor was kid-friendly. No swearing, no drinking, no drugs, no smoking. And here it is in this bound-to-be movie that he's lighting up with Vincent Price. So I'm like, okay. I actually had to rewind that. I'm like, is he really? Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But going back to your question, I just, I don't know how they would have done that. It would have been very cheaply done. I think maybe they were walking by the BBC and there happened to be a bunch of scarecrows inside the vault. And like, I guess we can do it with that budget if we have that movie and something there. But
very Hammer horror. Like parts that were definitely very Hammer horror. And I know Tom did some work with them as well. So maybe that's what he was drawing on when he was inspired by this and stuff. So, but yeah, they could have definitely done the scarecrow part pretty well. It's the other stuff that's like,
Firehead. Go around the room real quick just to get our final thoughts because we're coming to a close. So, Brian, final thoughts about Scratchman.
If you've not gotten this book and listened to it, I highly recommend the audiobook because the way Tom reads it, he just brings it to life. And as I said before, it's like the Doctor is sitting here recounting this story to you, and he just still can capture the Doctor so well even now. Mackenzie,
how about you?
Yeah, definitely. If you've not, for me, this was actually my first movie and book. So for me, I got to pop the cherry there. So yeah, definitely.
Definitely recommend.
I feel
How about you, Mark?
All of a sudden.
I'm the opposite. I've read like pretty much every Doctor Who book all the way back to the Target books and all that. So this was a trip down memory lane with a lot of great stuff. So a couple slow parts, a couple disjointed parts, but it was a pure joy.
Christian, what about you?
I really can't wait until this becomes a Big Finish audio. I'm hoping Nick Briggs will just pick it up and just take it and run it with it. The only thing I think that would be a challenge if it was converted over it like that would be the scene, and I wish I knew her name, the Scarecrow that was chasing Sarah Jane into the TARDIS into that puzzle room in that time picture room, and the way that Tom reads it, that she can feel who she is, and at the very last moment she remembers her name.
Yeah,
it's very hard to reflect to interpret that into a Big Finish audio, which is mostly dramatizations. And I got big feels when she fell, and that was the last thing. Yeah, she was
absolutely.
But that was the kind of stuff that I loved about Scratchman, because it kind of went into the intricacies of characterizations. Indeed, especially with we laugh about him, Harry Sullivan, but when he falls into the hole in the pinball room, I felt so bad for him. When he was on that ledge, I was just like, oh, poor guy. And, we clown about him, saying that he's Inspector Clouseau, but when we really get to know when we get to really feel his character in those situations, if you don't listen to Scratchman, you're doing yourself an injustice. It is kind of lengthy, but, it's Tom Baker, for crying out loud. You'll stay awake. So... you're doing yourself an injustice if you've never heard the Fourth Doctor or seen the Fourth Doctor. Scratchman's a nice place to go to kind of understand what the Doctor is about. Anyways.
Oh, it definitely is. And honestly, if you haven't had a chance, if you want to go ahead and go for it, go for the audiobook. Yes, it's over 8 hours, but it is just marvelous. You're not going to lose your place. You can always kind of get into it at any point. Otherwise, pick up the book. I think it's just a little over 300 pages long, maybe 350. If you get a chance, honestly, taking from all of us, we loved it. You would love it too. So that's about it for The Legend of the Traveling TARDIS. Now we're about to kind of leave you, and thank you once again. But first, we have a little message from somebody.
I do recommend it. Hold on. Yes, that's me, Tom Baker. You'll love it. You'll absolutely love it. Buy two. Buy one for your granny. Goodbye. Goodbye. I hope we meet again. And if we don't, it's been marvelous. Goodbye.
So there you go. That was our 4 years ago review of Scratchman by Tom Baker, the birthday man himself, the reason that we are all here. Let's be honest. Without Tom Baker, I doubt that Doctor Who would still be around today. He is, for an entire generation, an older generation, of course, the Doctor. The number of times that I have heard, who was your first Doctor? Oh, well, it must have been Tom Baker on PBS. From Americans, from North Americans, I've lost track. So thank you to Tom Baker for being born and for taking on this wonderful part. Thank you guys for joining us. Please like this video, subscribe wherever it is you're watching this, on YouTube, on Twitch, on Facebook, wherever it may be. Join us every Tuesday when we do a live show, and you can converse with us in the comments section. And it won't just be, me alone doing this. So until then, thank you again. And Tony, take it away.